Inravio.com.
Mic on? We're good? We're live? Oh, I don't hear anything. Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson, and you're watching the 505 on Racing Show. I'm not hearing anything, so I didn't even know I was on. So anyway, welcome. Welcome to another night of race talk, and we'll have some stuff to talk about tonight. Formula One, Charlotte, for 3 series anyway, the top two, and the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour. And we're going to talk about things that go on at racetracks. Anyway, the Japanese Grand Prix was held in Suzuka, Japan, of Formula One. Lewis Hamilton was the winner there, followed by Max Verstappen. And Daniel Ricciardo was third. Valtteri Bottas was fourth, and Kimi Räikkönen was fifth. The World Championship Series standings goes like this. Lewis Hamilton is first place out of Great Britain. Sebastian Vettel out of Germany is second. Valtteri Bottas out of Finland is third. Daniel Ricciardo out of Australia, and Kimi Räikkönen out of Finland. Now that the Formula One stuff, and I've said this before, traveling all over literally the world to go racing, the logistics of that has got to be a real hassle. When I say a real hassle, I mean this is what they do, this is what we do. But think about you going through customs with your race team, with your hauler. You go through customs, and you have to have a manifest of everything that's on that trailer, and you need to bring that all back with you. Anything that you have less of, so to speak, it's like you sold it there, and customs may ask for the taxes and duties on that. Anything you come back with extra, you got to prove that you bought it and show receipts. It's not easy to go through customs. I know I experienced that when the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour went up to Delaware Ontario Speedway in Canada, and just going through customs back and forth was a real hassle. Now, they didn't hassle any of our teams, with the exception, I should say, one. And we told every team, when you get to the border, when you get to the Canadian border to cross over into Canada, and you give your passport, you are going to be not searched, but I call it a virtual search. They go in and they look at your history in the computer. And if you have any wants or warrants, you're arrested on the spot. If you have any felonies, Canada doesn't want you in, and you're stuck there, which happened to one of the hauler drivers on the tour. He had a felony, although it was years ago. He did not get into Canada. He had to stay at a hotel room at the border until the race weekend was over. That added to a problem was there was really nobody else to drive that team's hauler, which, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, one of the tour officials, who has a Class A with all the endorsements, ended up taking that hauler in at the displeasure of the NASCAR higher-ups. It looked like we were giving a team favoritism, and all we were trying to do was get that hauler in, and then somebody had to drive it down to the border back to cross over into the United States. So, you know, Formula One, and I know they've been doing it for a long time, and they know what they're doing, they know how to do it. I just still think it's a logistical nightmare, but I give these guys credit for going all over the place. They race in Australia, Japan, Europe, Africa, the United States, Canada. You know, it's worldwide. It's not as big as it once was years ago when back in the 60s, I was going to say when I was a kid, but back in the 60s with the Formula One racing, it was just a whole different atmosphere. There were a lot more teams, just like in every other race series across the world. There were a lot more cars. Qualifying was tough. Now, basically you show up to a lot of these events and you're in, And well, it's 22 figure eight. That race was, I don't want to say the race was a bust because it was a good race for those who showed up. And it was a good race for the fans, and the management treated us like we were celebrities. And I kid you not. What the problem was, the race was too late in the season. It was a September race. And it was supposed to be chilly, and it ended up being like almost 100 degrees. It was hot as the dickens. And the problem that we had was many of the teams did not go because if you weren't in the top 10 in points, there was no need to go, or if you didn't have a shot at the top 10 in points. And that's basically what happened. 14 or 15 teams showed up. If that race would have been in April or May when the tour schedule was lighter and the funds are more available for the teams, I think they would have had a fuller field. But back then it was they had the Canadian Tire Series, was the NASCAR series at the time that was kind of involved, and it could have worked. It's just the timing was off. And we're going to talk about this no points modified race that they had in Charlotte over this past weekend, and a similar situation. But we're going to talk about that then. But again, talking about the Formula One, if you've never watched Formula One, it's better on TV because live, you're seeing what's going by you in that corner. It's like going to Watkins Glen, except flat for the most part. Watkins Glen, you can get up on a hill, you can see a good portion of the racetrack. But when you look at the Formula One, they're racing through the streets sometimes of the city. You're seeing what goes by you, and every 2.5 minutes, okay, here they come again, and you're watching the Jumbotron, which they didn't have back in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. But Formula One racing is expensive. They're racing rocket ships, and that's what they are. And they can't touch, they can't bump, and not that you want to be bumping and touching and all. The wheels are out there. Everything's so fine. And one of the things that NASCAR is looking to do, which Formula One and Indy does, is the driver controls the jack. He presses a button, hydraulically lifts the car up, and when they're done, he lifts and drops it back down. And it's supposed to save cost in the NASCAR side. I don't know how that's going to save cost. I'm sure the bean counters have it all figured out, and that's how they're selling it. But when you look at these Formula One cars, when they take the wheels off, it's one boom, boom, spin, pull, wheel, back on, 5 off, 5 on. There, it's 1 off, 1 on. It's a totally different experience with the Formula One and Grand Prix as is Indy cars, which is, it's not the same, and nothing really is the same as it was years ago, but Indy car racing is just not the same. And one of the reasons for the Indy car decline, in my opinion, is that when they couldn't all come to terms and one group thought they were better than the other and they walked off and formed CART. And they were struggling as a group, yet they're going to split up and think they're going to do better. It's almost like, and I hate to use this analogy, but it's like a husband and a wife. You're struggling to make your bills as a couple. Well, let's just go get a divorce now and live in separate homes and let's double our bills because now you each have your own. It's kind of the same, and there's strength in numbers, and that divide and conquer thing, it works in some aspects of professionalism and life, but dividing and conquering in motorsports does not normally work out. And the reason it doesn't work is that you're doing the same with less, and that's a problem. And when you look at that, it just can't be. So anyway, enough on Formula One and Indy cars, but it's just one of those things. Not one of my hot buttons, but I'm not a big Formula One fan. I couldn't even tell you if I wasn't reading the results every now and again. If somebody came up to me and said, without having to do this, do you know who Lewis Hamilton is? I don't know. He's the son of Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury of the United States. I don't know. And Max, Verstappen, who's he? He's probably some soldier in the German SS. So I don't, this is what I would be saying. I mean, it's. I mean, maybe it's not funny, but they're not marketed here in the United States. It's not a name brand Formula One, and the drivers are not recognizable in the United States as they are probably in Europe, where they're heroes in Europe. They're heroes. And just like, you know, unfortunately, the Dale Earnhardts and the Terry Labontes and the Bobby Allisons of the day, the Richard Pettys, you know, you say those names in America, and most everybody knows on that. And I miss that. I would have liked to have seen that 22 figure eight. You know, I watched that movie Driven a couple of years ago about Formula One racing, and it was a lot of behind the scenes that went on there, which was just like any other race series. The behind the scenes stuff, the infighting, the trying to shaft people out of their sponsors and trying to steal rides. It's all like that. And the press following them around and always in their face type of thing. And it was an awesome picture. And you don't have to be a race fan to watch that movie. You don't have to be a race fan. Because it's more of a life story about life and kind of how these people lived and the money that they made. And here you are, you're on top of the world. You're on top of the world, and you got those championships, and you're winning races. And then all of a sudden, your skills decline, and you're out. And you know, all of a sudden, your entourage is gone. Your big fancy apartment or home, whatever they called them, and back with those guys, their flats, as one of the guys referred to it in the movie. Those guys now go back to living with their sister or something. It's just when the money. It's like being an NFL football star, and I happened to be friends years ago with a former New York Jet player who went on to play with the Oakland Raiders that won the Super Bowl way back when. And he said that a lot of the players, that their time in the NFL is so short, and I want to make this like a sports show because we already have one of those, but the time in the NFL is so short, and yeah, they're making a lot of money, but a lot of those guys, when they retire from the NFL, they're broke. They got to go work. They got to go get a job, and most of them are not prepared for that. And most of them, their injuries make it such that they cannot do other jobs, and between the concussions and broken bones and the arthritis that they end up with. And it's a sad state of affairs. And I really think the behind the scenes with Dale Earnhardt Jr. retiring at such, in racing at a young age, is because of all his injuries and his concussions, and I think they're keeping that kind of quiet, aside from the fact that he is being chastised by NASCAR for using a supplement, I'll call it, that was legal, which is now illegal, that they banned it. And he doesn't get along with the top guys in NASCAR, Dale Jr., and if he would have come back, he would have probably ended up suspended anyway for 2018. So it's just easy to go out quietly. And I think the fact that he's Dale Earnhardt Jr., NASCAR allowed him to do that. If he was, you know, me, he would have been banned that day, or if he was you. But, you know, he's Dale Earnhardt Jr., and that name Dale Earnhardt goes a long way, a long, long way in the racing community. It'd be like going after, you know, Richard Petty. You just don't do that. Richard Petty's family. Anyway, it seems like it's almost a regular occurrence, but last week, Robert Yates passed away of cancer. He was a champion engine builder for Dale Jarrett in 1999. A car owner, he was voted into NASCAR Hall of Fame class of 2018. Yates' cars won 57 races as an owner, and that's at NASCAR's highest level, 48 poles over that time. He also built motors for Bobby Allison, the 1983 Cup champion, and won the Daytona 500 with Davey Allison in '92 and Dale Jarrett in 1996 and again in 2000. He's the co-founder of Roush Yates Engines, and many current Ford teams use engines built by Robert Yates, not only in the top series, but the Xfinity truck and modified tour as well. Robert Yates was 74. He's a true pioneer in our sport. He will be missed.
Set It Off.
I said was going to say what's up for some reason. Hey, we're Set It Off, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE, your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi there, this is Buddy from Less Than Jake, and you are listening to Inravio TV. You're probably watching it too.
Hey, welcome back. And the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour was at the Charlotte Motor Speedway in Charlotte, North Carolina, for a non-points race. Stafford's fall final was last week. The Thompson World Series, the last race of their season, is this coming weekend. Why did they go to Charlotte for a non-points race from the north? And I'll tell you, from the number of teams that showed up, 12, considering it was all these southern teams that when the schedule came out, that was one that they'll be at. However, only a handful of those guys and gals showed up. And this is one of those times where somebody wasn't thinking. Now, when I say that, when you look at only 12 teams coming, and you want to be positive, and maybe the next year there'll be 18, maybe the year after that'll be 24, but 24 teams ventured down for this event, and I was surprised that when you see the Doug Cobies and the coming down for this event, and even though Jamie Tomano is a northerner, he lives there now, but he got some sponsorship for a one-race deal to come do that. I believe it's a two-race deal, includes Thompson as well. But when you look at that, who went down, and Justin Bonsignor went down, points leaders. Now, I'm going to say this: these are the money teams. They have extra cars, they have extra motors, they have help, they have full-time crew chiefs, they have car owners who are very comfortable, not only race-wise, but in their businesses as well. So they can afford to do that. But from like 10th in points down, this was not a good time to have a race like that. This type of race is another, like I said, with the Delaware-Ontario race in Canada. This is a race that would have been better off held in the spring when the schedule is light. When you race, have 3 weeks off, you race, have 4 weeks off. This is when a race like that should have been held. And I'm not questioning the business sense of the NASCAR people. I'm questioning, why this wasn't sold to the teams. And I know that the series director was on the phone with teams and spoke to teams at Stafford Motor Speedway in Connecticut. And you're coming to Charlotte, right? You're coming to Charlotte. Hey, you're coming to Charlotte. And those that were honest and said, no, I'm not that they were chastised, but it was like, well, why not? And, well, it's a non-point race. Yeah, but it pays this. It didn't pay enough for the last place team or the I don't want to say a back marker, but for the team that just takes the green and kind of rides around, it didn't pay enough to cover the fuel to go down there. And from up in the north here, it's a good 12, 14, 15 hours to get down to Charlotte. You know, you're towing a rig. You got to bring your crew. You got to stay at least one night. You know, you can't fly everybody down. You still got to get your equipment. So whoever's going to ride in the hauler could go ride. And I know, like, when some of the teams go to Bristol, they have a double stacker. They throw somebody else's car in it to help out. But this wasn't a good move. When I saw this on the schedule, and this was an add-on, when I saw this on the schedule, I said, oh, you know, that's good. You know, some of the Southern guys, and it'd be nice to see, you know, Burt Myers and Jason Myers and you know, and all of those guys from the South coming out and running, L.W. Miller. You know, these guys, it would have been a good race with 18 cars. Now, enough on that anyway. You know, I think I've said enough about my displeasure with having a race. As many of the teams, the social media was hopping, and I could tell you had some people who were trying to reel it in. Hey guys, this is a good deal. Let's try it, see how it works out. You know, to have a 12-car modified race on that quarter mile, and they use the turn that's at the start-finish line. They come around, and it's like almost like if you're familiar with Stafford, the mini mile. Then you're going down pit road, and you're flat, and the turn's flat. Then you go back on the banking, going in a turn, and it's flat again. So setting up your car for this is not a fun thing. I worked a Southern modified race there a few years ago, and the way pit is set up, when you come off the racetrack, you got to go all the way down and around and come back down pit road and then come out again. And actually, I'm sorry, you come off of the back stretch, the pit road section, and you actually come down the pit road in the opposite direction. Then you got to go all the way at the end, go halfway down the straightaway before you're in at the racetrack again. So talk about, you know, losing laps. There's got to be an alternative way to set the pitting up for that. I'm sure all the powers to be sat down with Google Maps and looked. There's a big opening right there in pit road. It's like they raced up in Nadnock or Riverhead. Pull into that area to pit, and it's not so far down. The crews can see what's going on with their cars. You cannot see. All you can see is you see a bunch of bumpers coming at you. Then they go through turns 3 and 4, and if you know the colors of your car, which you should know, you'd be able to see them. But you're not seeing anything down the front stretch. You're not seeing anything in turns 1 and 2. That whole thing needs to be revamped. Very similar to racing the modifieds at the Daytona on the back stretch there, coming off of turn 3. But anyway, Doug Colby was the winner. He started from the pole. Danny Bond was second. Calvin Carroll was third, followed by Jamie Tamaniel fourth, Bobby Meismer Jr. fifth, Derek Krause sixth, C.J. Lehman seventh, Lauren Egerton, eighth, Corey LaJoy ninth, and Ryan Priest rounding out the top 10. Ryan had brake issues and pulled into the pits and just got out of his car. The points, one race to go in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour look like this. Doug Colby is the points leader. He sits atop coming into the last event at the Thompson Motorsports Park. Justin Bonsignor is second in points, 10 points back. That's not a lot to have to make up. Timmy Solomino, 12 points back in third. Ryan Priest, 19 points back in fourth, followed by Eric Goodale, 25 points back. Rowan Pennick, who's 33 points back. Dave Sapienza, 88 points back. He does not have a mathematical chance to be a contender, but it's still a good run by Sap in 2017. And Matt Swanson, 8th in points. Rob Summers, 9th. And Craig Lutz rounding out the top 10. So Colby, Bonsignor, Solomino will go battle at the Thompson Motorsports Park as we determine in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour who the champion for 2017 will be. I had the luxury, and Ryan Priest has an outside shot too. He's only 19 points back. Everybody else would have to finish mid-pack or worse, and Ryan would have to win. Stranger things have happened, and Ryan is a good chauffeur at the Thompson Motorsports Park. So it's going to be interesting watching those top four. Even Eric Goodale mixing it up there. He could shuffle that top five right up. But you know, this is one of the things that happens, and these cars are so competitive at this level. And in the modifieds, these guys are so competitive, and gals, I should say, there's a female racing, that anything can happen. And I'm sure NASCAR is going to do everything in their power to watch the bumping and the grinding, to watch the shoving and the pushing, especially at Thompson. And I know there was an issue a season or two ago where the point leader at the time was taken out by the eventual series champion, supposedly, depending on which video you're watching, whose side of the fence you're on, and whose story you want to listen to. With that being said, and I've been in this position, I can remember when Tony Hoshman won his title, one of his many. I was the race director in that tower, and we had eyes just on his car. Not because we were trying to help him, but we wanted to watch out for anybody who may have been dumb enough to be a factor. And every time he went to lap a car, I would get on the radio and say, "Spotters, don't be the person that makes this decision here. It's not your day. Get out of the way." I'm not saying roll over, because you're racing for a spot too, but you got potential champions coming up behind you. Just duck down. The season's over. Even if you, as the guy who's getting lapped, gets the lucky dog, the free pass, and comes back and wins the race, you're probably going to go from 21st to 20th, which is a big deal, but it's really not in the big scheme of it. You don't want to be a factor in a race where the championship is going to be divided or decided at the last race. And I'll tell you what, and that's one of the good things that you have with the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, because it's so competitive and because the season is kind of almost half of what it was 10, 15 years ago, race-wise. When you're going for a championship and you still have 3 drivers who are like right there, and a 4th and 5th driver who, under the right circumstances, could jump. Eric Goodale, like I said, if these other guys have a real bad day, Eric Goodale can walk away with the laurels. He could be the NASCAR Whelen Modified point champion. Ryan Preece missed a couple of races, and he's still right there 4th in points. So Ryan is going to be a big factor in this race, and I believe he is registered or signed up to go into this race. But the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, it will be ending its season. 2018, I really would love to see 18 or 20 races in that series in 2018. Like I said, when I first went on the tour in 2002, part-time and then full-time as the race director in 2003, we had 26 or 28 races those years, and we had car counts in the mid-40s every week. And one of the things I said, and I'll say it again, is that when they went to the shorter schedule, what that did is opened up the doors for all these other modified touring series. And you look at that, and last week I talked about the point fund money, over $1 million, and the earnings that you can make, even though there's a big cost factor as well. But when you look at that, and racing week after week, sometimes you race 3 weeks out of 4 back in those days, and starting in April with the World Series at Thompson, and ending, with the Icebreaker at Thompson, and ending with the World Series. When you looked at that, you had week after week after week after week of racing. And in some cases, we'd race on a Sunday somewhere and then have to be in New Hampshire on Wednesday night, Thursday morning. And looking back on that, and I remember sitting at a meeting and we're talking about that, kicking some stuff around, and I said, guys, and I'm going to talk as a racer now, which NASCAR hated when I said that at these meetings. So I'm going to talk as a racer. I built a race car to race. I built a race car to race every possible race I can. If you tell me the series my primary car was built for is going to go from 25 races to, and 1 year was like 13, I'm going to go race it somewhere else because I have sponsors that I have to answer to. Sponsors gave me $50,000 for the season, not to race 12 or 13 races. See, the sponsor doesn't understand, how come you're not racing every week, you know, like the Cup guys? They don't understand that. They don't understand that. Yeah, it is, like I said, there's a big cost factor involved, but you know, your cost per race and your income per race is still going to be the same. So your expense to revenue is going to be percentage-wise exactly the same. You're going to make more, you're going to spend more. It's just how it goes, you know. And you know, in talking about the Wall decision not to have a race, there's a lot of things with Wall, and I know the last time the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour went to Wall, it was probably around 2004, maybe 5. I don't remember exactly. I was a race director then, so it must have been like 2003 or 4. And one of the things we did, or I did with my head officials, my head tech guy, and the series director, was what we did, I should say, is we walked the track. And we walked all the way down the front stretch, and nothing against Wall. They do a nice job, they put on a nice show. But we stopped to talk about something, and I leaned against the guardrail, and I fell back because the guardrail was not right. We almost didn't race that day until they fixed that guardrail. We didn't practice that day on time because of the guardrail. There were a lot of issues with Wall in terms of what the facility was like on the racetrack. Sitting in the grandstands, it all looks good and great. I've sat there for a couple of races myself and drove race cars on that racetrack. But when you look at, you know, just not too long ago, a car went through the guardrail. Guardrail for racetracks is so outdated. And so when you say, is it NASCAR's or Wall's decision? I think it was a mutual decision. NASCAR said, hey, you know, you want to have a race, a tour race there? And Wall said, yeah, sure. Or NASCAR said, then you got to do this, 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 and this. And Wall says, no, we're not doing it. I don't know. I wasn't at that meeting. I only talk about the meetings I go to, but I'm sure how that discussion went down. Now, there's a lot that goes on with this. You just don't have it, let's have a tour race. There's so much money that the track operator, promoter has to put up and send to NASCAR. So you take a race like, oh, I don't know, the old days at Riverhead. They got to send NASCAR about $50,000 because, you know, the payoff comes out of NASCAR. I know the old promoters used to give you cash to the teams, and guys loved coming here for the cash. You know, it was $6,000 to win, and you know, and I don't know how that kind of works tax-wise, but I think I need to make 12 to net 6. So these guys, that's cash. They can write off the entire expense for the weekend and show no income for it. They loved coming here, but that was the last track to do that. Now it comes out of the NASCAR prize fund. So that racetrack has to send upwards of $50,000. And I'm not talking Bristol and New Hampshire. That's a whole big other nut that they got to pay. But they could swing it because they have enough seats to do so. And here's what happens. A lot of cars don't show up. A lot of people in the pits don't show up. You have a threat of rain, you lost your shirt, and then some. So it's not that easy. And negotiations with the track operators in NASCAR for tour races starts the year prior. While they're there for that race, the discussions start. Hey, so what do you think? You know, looking at the same dates next year? I don't know, maybe. And that's how that kind of goes down. You know, it's not just like, you know, NASCAR calls up, you know, whatever speedway. Hey, we're coming. You know, it's a big nut to crack for some of these racetracks. And I know Beach Ridge, we stopped going. We stopped going up in New Hampshire. Maine, I'm sorry, we were going up to Maine. It was just, wow, it was a hike. It was a fun place to race. They couldn't do it. We went to Adirondack Speedway up in upstate New York, and we were just talking about this. I was just talking about this with this racetrack with Ed Flemke and a couple of the guys, and how the track was still under construction. The small track in the middle was done, but the super speedway that with the building was not. There was no guardrails. It was an interesting place to compete and to race. that place, they lost their shirt because that was the first year of the Whelen Modified Tour after all those years being as the Featherlight Modified Tour. So all the advertising that was in the town, and there were signs everywhere, trust me. And driving through the town, I remember our flag guy, Bob Slade, and one of our tech guys, Curtis Kaplan, and myself, and Dave Pace, were driving through the town, and we weren't like in a time warp. We were joking around and says, I'm waiting for Opie Taylor to come walking down the street with his fishing pole and Andy Fife, you know, and those guys, because it was Mayberry. And then it said, right before the railroad, make a right. And we're driving and there's no right. We go over the railroad. How did we miss the right? Who's not paying? We go back. Well, it was a little dirt road that took us into the woods, over the river, through the woods. And when we get there, it was like, wow, this is the place. Everybody in the town didn't know what the Whelen Modified Tour was. They were hoping that the Featherlight Tour was coming. Wasn't marketed right. Anyway, we're going to take a break, and we come back. We'll talk a little bit more about the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, how it looks for Thompson, and some of the prizes that are probably close to being awarded on paper when we come back.
Hi, I'm Remington.
I'm Emerson.
And I'm Sebastian.
We're Palais Royale, and you're watching Inravio TV.
There we go.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there, and we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Spooky Walk at Camp Aquatic, Friday and Saturday, October 20th and 21st, 27th and 28th. Located on Montauk Highway between Center Moriches and East Moriches. $20 per person. All proceeds benefit the camp. Take the LIE to 69S or Sunrise Highway to 59S. Go to the end and turn right. Go to Montauk Highway and turn left. Spooky Walk, brought to you by the Moriches Bay Squaws. Go to SpookyWalk.com for more info.
Hey, this is Chris Less Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Master. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop. 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi, this is Mike Jarecki from My Race News, and you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Hey, welcome back. Anyway, as the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour Series season ends, say that 3 times fast, some of the hardware that's going to be given out at the annual awards banquet, which will probably be held in Charlotte in December. The Rookie of the Year, there were a lot of rookie contenders in the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour this season. Calvin Carroll right now is sitting atop the rookie points with Walter Sutcliffe Jr. second and Ronnie Williams third. Unless something really crazy happens, it looks like Calvin Carroll will be the Rookie of the Year for the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour. It's based on a 10-point system that's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, based on how you finish. And a lot would have to happen for Calvin to not take that title. The owner points, this is kind of shocking. Ed Partridge sits atop the owner point standings, the owner of the Ryan Priest, number 6. Ed Partridge of Long Island. Mike Slamergolo III is 39 points back in owner points, owner of the 2 car driven by Doug Colby, who was sitting atop the points. And Kenny Massa 49 points back. The owner of the Justin Bonsignor is number 51. So a lot's going to happen at the Thompson Motorsports Park this weekend. So it'll be a good race to check out. Anyway, the Camping World Truck Series was off this weekend. They will return in 2 weeks, or a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, to Talladega. That'll be a Saturday race. The trucks at Talladega are always an interesting event to watch at the big track. Yes, you saw earlier Spooky Walk Camp at Camp Paquatuck. I'm sorry, Friday and Saturday, October 20th and 21st. And again, the 27th and 28th. It's $20 per person at the gate, and all proceeds go to benefit the camp for special needs children and adults. Located on Montauk Highway between Center Moriches and East Moriches. To get there, you take the Long Island Expressway to exit 69 South, or the Sunrise Highway, Route 27, to exit 59 South as well. Go to the end, turn right, then go to Montauk Highway, turn left. This is brought to you by the Moriches Bay Squaws. So that's always a good event during this Halloween time. Some Xfinity news. Richard Childress Racing signed Matt Tifft to a multi-year deal for Richard Childress Racing's Xfinity Series car. Tifft will drive the number 2 Chevy in 2018 and beyond. Tifft, only 21, is a serious contender in the Xfinity Series playoffs this year as a rookie. Congratulations to Matt, and a lot of success in the Truck Series as well. Some of the Cup news going on. 19 teams lost practice time this past weekend at the Charlotte Motor Speedway in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series due to tech issues. 11 teams missed the first 15 minutes of practice, and 8 teams missed 30 minutes of the 50-minute session. Now, let me explain how that works. It's not because they were in the tech line, okay? It was because they failed. They failed tech. And when they say failed, like something wasn't right, they had to push off, go back to the garage, fix it, change it, modify, whatever they did, get back online and come around. Well, Chase Elliott and Martin Truex Jr. had to go through tech 5 times to fix some infractions after they failed the first 4. Eric Jones never made it through successfully and was unable to qualify, therefore not eligible to compete in the event. Now, come on, guys. This isn't your first race. And when I say this, you know what it has to be. And I'll tell you what, how many times are you going to make them go through? I mean, there comes a certain time where you say, all right, you're out. I don't know what the infractions were. Sometimes, you know, when you have this variance, I remember when we put the templates on it, and I've done some cup races, and you put the feeler gauge under the templates. I believe the number, don't quote me on this, is 3/30 seconds. That's nothing. Think about it, 3/30 seconds of an inch. Anything can happen. There's guys with hammers beating benders and wheel wells and hoods to get it where it needs to be. And at a track like Charlotte, aero is important. Not as important as a Martinsville or a Dover, but at a mile and a half, and when they go to Talladega, the 2.66 miles, it makes a big difference. But is NASCAR looking at too much? Are they really making it so that they're not jet planes? They don't have to worry about reduced drag. And you know, when you're coming to measuring stuff with a laser, that laser is only as good as the person who set it up. Nothing against the guy and gal who works the laser, because they work hard to making it happen. And one of our guys on the modified series was our laser guy, and it took him a long time to get it set up and to get it right. And he had moved up onto the Cup Series as well over the years. But when you look at this, it's not the way it was years ago. It's not, and nothing really is. And when you look at that, when you look at 19 teams miss practice, and now it's not that they sat in their hauler. They have to be suited up, strapped in, helmets on, all that, and they sit on pit road like it's time out. You're being punished. Now, that's how NASCAR is looking at it. Now, I'll tell you what. Let's say I have a car out there and it's the 5-off, on racing show car that's sitting at the end of pit road during qualifying because we went through tech. That car went through tech a couple of times and failed. That's a free commercial for my company, for my show. It's sitting out there on pit road for everybody to see. It's a free commercial. Free. Every time a car pulls out of the pits. There's my car in timeout on pit road because I failed tech. I love it. I love it. Now, NASCAR, I know they watch this. They're going to see that, and they're going to change where they have to sit. Trust me. Believe me when I tell you, in the 2018 rules package, timeout will be like in Victory Lane or something where you can't be seen. But anyway, you know, and for this one guy, Eric Jones, to go through tech so many times that he missed qualifying. Man, how do you go back to your sponsor and say, listen, I know you gave me like, you know, $50,000 or $100,000 to go race that race, and or $1.2 million, whatever they get. I don't know what Eric Jones gets, but how come you didn't make the race? Oh, we failed tech. That doesn't look good. NASCAR needs to work with these teams to make sure if they show up, they have a fair opportunity to go qualify. Give them a one lap thing going around instead of two, something. These cars show up, and unless, and I say this, and I've said this all the time, unless it's a safety issue or a serious competitive advantage, let them go. You deal with the issue later. Okay? You deal with the issue later. And speaking with the issue later, yeah, Ernie Saxon has a column in the area auto racing news, and he always has these little one-liners in there. And he was talking about a team that was, you know, so-and-so's team was found, they found missing lug nuts. Ernie Saxon says, if they found them, then how could they be missing? Anyway, I'll wait for the applause and the laughter. All right, good. Anyway, Charlotte, it was hot, it was muggy. Kyle Busch and others, there was a couple other guys too. When the event ended, he got out of his car on the infield, on the grass, stepped out and went flat on his face right into the infield grass and was immediately dealt with by the caretakers and was taken to the infield care center. With 50 laps to go in the event, Busch radioed to his team and stated he would need medical assistance after the event. He was feeling okay now, as he said, but he needed medical assistance as soon as this race ended. Busch suffered heat stroke from the heat getting into the race car after he hit the wall on lap 135, and two other times when he hit the wall. It broke the heat shields and opened up some of the air in the floorboard. So he was getting, not only was he not getting fresh air, he was getting exhaust air at the same time, and the heat just got to him. He was taken to the care center and treated and released, and he walked out of the care center and talked to news and TV reporters that he was fine. They gave him a little oxygen, and gave him some fluids. And for those who think that race car drivers aren't athletes, I'll tell you what, I don't know anybody else, I shouldn't say anybody, too many people who could sit in a race car, go 200 laps, or 150 laps, or 500 laps at Bristol and the Martinsvilles in 95-degree temperatures, dressed the way they are, and not be in some kind of physical shape. Think about that, folks. Think about just driving to work here on, especially on Long Island or down in Charlotte where the traffic sometimes can be crazy. Think about that 45 minutes to an hour you're sitting and driving, you're just going to just move, brake, move, brake. You're not going 180 miles an hour, taking a hard left, straighten it out, go down a straightaway for 20 seconds, 180 miles an hour, make a hard left for like 5 hours. You're in your car for 45 minutes sometimes, and you're dying when you get to your job or when you get home. You're like, oh my God, that drive beat me. Think about it being a race car driver. It's kind of an interesting thing, but race car drivers, it's not an easy task for them. in the heat. The heat was not expected, so I'm sure each of these drivers have trainers and they hydrate. You don't just hydrate that morning, and I learned this many, many years ago. You don't hydrate that morning, you hydrate a couple of days before. It's like an athlete. You got to carb up before your event. You don't, like that morning, go eat a bowl of pasta. It's a couple of days before because your body has to absorb it. And as a race car driver, you need to be in good shape. And I can remember talking to my doctor when I was considering going back into this racing thing as a driver. And I'm not ashamed. I'm a type 2 diabetic and under control, pretty much. And I said to him, most drivers, hydrate a couple of days before the race, but race day, they're slamming down Gatorades for the electrolytes and the pick-me-up. And I said, so what do you recommend? He says, well, I recommend that you hydrate and you do your Gatorade right before you get in because your blood sugar levels are going to drop. And you don't want to have that blood sugar crash. And I thought about that, and yeah, it made a lot of sense. So I'm sure these guys, know what they're doing. And yeah, 22 figure eight, he hydrated with beer the night before and paid the price in practice. Yeah, I can remember some guys showing up at the racetrack, and you could tell they went right from the adult beverage facility on Friday night and closed the place, slept a couple hours, and then showed up and went racing. And it's like the guys in Martinsville. I had gone to the modified races and the Cup race in Martinsville for a long time. And I can remember going to this place down the road. It had a windmill, and it was a nice bar there. And I saw Harry Gant there, Richie Evans there, Jerry Cook, all these guys. And it's like 3 in the morning, and they're still there. They're still there, tipping them back. Who's buying? I got this round. And I'm like, these guys are racing in a few hours. And they'd show up at the race like nothing. And I'm not really a drinker, so I was just tired. And I knew how I felt at 7 in the morning when I got to the racetrack, because you gotta be the first guy there. And I don't know how they did it, but that's what they did back in those days. And 22 figure, I gotta admit, we're old guys, man. We're from the old school, you and me. We're from the old school. But anyway, it was a good time back then. And you looked at somebody, you look at Jimmy Spencer, and not that he's a bad guy, but I'm not thinking he's like ready to run a marathon. But that guy drove modifieds. He drove in those big modified races back in the 80s, and when he won Cup racing, you look at a guy like that, and it's like, whoa, man. But anyway, we're going to take a break, and we come back. We will wrap up with the Xfinity Series results as well as the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup results from Charlotte when we come back.
Hey guys, this is Jibs from Ocean's 8, Alaska, and you're watching Inravio TV Network.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Mert Well. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you're punching the But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
What's up, guys? This is Assuming We Survive, and you're watching Inravio TV Network.
Hey, welcome back. All right, the Xfinity Series with the Charlotte Motor Speedway this past weekend. Alex Bowman was the winner, followed by Sam Hornish Jr. Ryan Blaney was third. Austin Dillon fourth. Brennan Poole was fifth. Cole Custer was sixth. Daniel Hemrick seventh. Daniel Suarez eighth. Matt Tifft ninth, just signed that big deal with Richard Childress Racing. And Elliott Sadler rounding out the top 10. The points look like this. William Byron is the point leader. Justin Allgaier second. Elliott Sadler third. 6 points separate the top three in that series. Daniel Hemrick fourth. Ex-modified tour driver. Cole Custer fifth. Brennan Poole sixth. Ryan Reed was seventh. Matt Tifft eighth. Brendan Gaughan ninth. And rounding out the top 10 in points is Michael Annett. The Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series was there as well, with a highlight of the weekend. And they looked like this. Martin Truex Jr., his second win in the playoffs, guaranteeing him a spot in the next round of the playoffs. Chase Elliott second. Kevin Harvick was third. Denny Hamlin fourth. Jamie McMurray was fifth. Daniel Suarez sixth. Jimmy Johnson seventh. Ryan Blaney was eighth. Casey Kane ninth. And Kyle Larson rounding out the top 10. The NASCAR Cup Series will be at Talladega this weekend, where the Xfinity will be off, and their next event will be in Kansas on the 21st. The points look like this in the playoffs. Martin Truex Jr. is sitting at the top, followed by Kyle Larson, Kevin Harvick, Chase Elliott fourth, Denny Hamlin is fifth, Kyle Busch sixth, Jimmy Johnson seventh, Jamie McMurray eighth, and on the bubble, we have Matt Kenseth, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Each of those four guys must win to advance, otherwise it doesn't look like they're going to be in it. Martin Truex Jr. with his 2 victories, I said earlier, is locked into the next round. But what is helping him as well is the stage wins. And over the playoff series, he has 1 stage win, as does Kyle Larson. However, Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch have 2 stage wins apiece. So it should be interesting coming into the end of the Sprint Car, the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. You know, and that's a fine, that's a penalty. That's a penalty. I'm gonna have to sit in timeout. You know, it's like funny. My daughter Erin, who is a NASCAR official, was trying to explain to a friend of hers what is a race car, and she goes, you know, well, a late model. What's a late model? You know, like the Winston Cup cars. And my daughter, I don't even think she was born when Winston Cup was just a little funny thing that I had seen in social media. And anyway, again, Spooky Walk at Camp Paquatuck, Friday and Saturday, October 20th and 21st, and again the 27th and 28th. $20 per person at the gate. All proceeds to benefit the camp for special needs children and adults. Located on Montauk Highway between Center Moriches and East Moriches, you take the Long Island Expressway to exit 69 South, or Sunrise Highway to exit 59 South. Go to the end, turn right. Go to Montauk Highway, turn left. And this is brought to you by the Moriches Bay Squaws. Oh, well, racing. Okay, we got the World Series at the Thompson Motorsports Park this weekend. Talladega. It's a race that everybody waits for the big one. And I'll tell you what, the big one's going to happen there again, because there's a lot on the line, and these people are just, I don't want to say impatient, but think about it. You're running 220 miles an hour, inches apart, all in an airflow, and one guy just gets out of line, and the air gets disrupted, and people go all over the place. It's going to be an interesting race to watch and an interesting event to see. And my prediction is the big one's going to happen in the last 20 laps. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up here tonight. So I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules. Those who watched on the computer, those who participated in the chat room, I thank you. I have my regulars that never miss. I want to thank you guys for your support over the years. And I also want to wish everybody a nice, hope you had a nice Columbus Day. Also, Thompson, again, Motorsports Park this weekend. World Series, 15 divisions, I believe, are going to be running there. It'll be a good weekend. So wherever your endeavors will bring you this weekend, please be safe, please be careful, Give somebody a hug. Tell them you love them. God bless you all. And we will see you next week on Monday with Stories from Thompson. Have a good week.
Inravio.com.